The man lived alone on the edge of a small human outpost. His house was not big, not new, and not warm, but it was the only place he could call home. Years ago, he had moved here after losing his family in the war. Silence was his companion, and sometimes silence was heavier than pain. One evening, tired of eating cold meals and dry bread, he typed a short message on the old terminal. It was nothing special, just a simple ad he posted to the local network. Looking for a cook. Small. Pay simple meals. Safe shelter, it read. He did not expect much, perhaps some miner looking for extra work, or maybe nobody at all. Days passed, and the ad received no reply. The man almost forgot he had posted it. He sat by the small fire at night, staring at the smoke, thinking about how life had turned empty. He had no friends nearby, no family, only the sound of the desert wind against his windows. Then came the night that changed everything. The wind grew stronger, carrying dust and sand that hit his walls with sharp cracks. It was late, and the man was about to sleep when he heard it. 3 soft knocks on his door. At first he thought it was the storm playing tricks, but the sound came again, slow and heavy. Cautiously he stood, his heart beating faster. No one ever visited him at night. No one should even be near his home during a storm. He picked up the old lamp and opened the door. There she was, standing in the dim light, a tall figure wrapped in a worn dark cloak, her face partly hidden. In her arms, she held something close, something small, wrapped in glowing cloth. The man blinked. Confused, "Are you lost?" he asked. The woman lifted her head and his breath caught. Her eyes were not human eyes, they glowed softly like 2 pieces of a dying star. Her skin was pale with faint lines of silver across it. The man froze, realizing what she was. An alien. Not just an alien, but an alien mother carrying a child. The baby stirred and gave a weak cry, a sound both strange and familiar. It was not like a human child, yet it carried the same helpless tone. The man felt his heart twist, though fear battled inside him. He had heard stories of aliens, enemies. In the war, survivors scattered across the galaxy. Some were said to be dangerous, others hunted, none trusted. Before he could speak, the woman whispered. Her voice was heavy, tired, but filled with a quiet plea. "We need shelter. Please. Before they find us." The man felt the storm whip against his back, the sand biting his face. He looked at her again, at the baby, and at the darkness behind her. There was something in her words, something in her eyes. It was not just fear. It was desperation. Whoever they were close. He hesitated, his mind racing. If he let her in, he might be pulling death into his home. If he shut the door, she and the child might not survive the night. His hand trembled on the doorframe. Lightning split the sky, showing her face more clearly. Tired lines, bruises, and yet something strong. A mother's strength. A mother who had carried her child through danger. The baby whimpered again, glowing faintly in the cloth. The glow reflected in the man's eyes, pulling at something deep inside him. He remembered his own child, the one he lost. A shadow of pain cut through his chest. The woman looked at him, her voice almost breaking. "They are hunting us," she whispered. "If you close the door, we die." The man swallowed. He knew the hunters she spoke of. They were not human soldiers, but something worse. Mercenaries, scavengers, killers, who would track anything for money. If they wanted her baby, it meant the child was valuable, powerful, or dangerous. Still, he could not ignore the trembling in her arms, the weak cry of life struggling to survive. His loneliness screamed against his fear. He stepped aside slowly. "Come in," he said, his voice rough. She entered, moving quickly, as if afraid the storm itself carried eyes. He shut the door behind her, locking it tight. Inside, the fire flickered, lighting her face for the first time. The baby's glow dimmed as it drifted into restless sleep. The man sat across from her, uncertain. He wanted to ask who she was, why she came, why she carried a child into his home. But all he could manage was a single question. "Who is after you?" The woman's eyes shifted toward the window where the storm howled. Her whisper came again, soft but chilling. They are already near. At that very moment, a faint sound broke through the roar of the storm. Not the wind, not the sand, but something sharper. Metal footsteps moving slowly outside his house. The man's blood ran cold. The storm had hidden their arrival, but the hunters had found his door, and now he realized with dread there was no turning back. The storm raged through the night, but inside the house the fire burned low. The man sat in silence, watching the alien mother. She held her child close, rocking gently as if every sound outside might wake a nightmare. Her cloak was wet with dust, her face pale, her hands trembling from cold and fear. The man wanted answers, but the words stuck in his throat. He poured water into a small cup and placed it on the table. "Drink," he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, her silver-marked fingers curling around the cup. The child shifted in her arms, making a soft humming sound, strange but gentle. It filled the room with a vibration, like a quiet song. The man's heart beat heavier. He had fought in the war. He had seen alien soldiers with weapons and machines, but he had never seen an alien mother, never seen an alien baby with glowing skin and soft cries. It was not a monster before him. It was a family, fragile and lost. "Why are they hunting you?" he asked, voice low. The woman lowered her eyes, refusing to answer. Instead, she unwrapped a small piece of cloth and revealed a bit of strange food, purple grains mixed with dried leaves. She placed them in the pan above the fire, stirring. Carefully, soon the air filled with a smell unlike anything he had known, sweet yet sharp. For a moment, the house felt alive again. Not empty, not cold. The man almost forgot his fear, almost. When the meal was ready, she offered him a small bowl. He hesitated, staring at the strange food, but hunger spoke louder than suspicion, and he tasted it. Warmth spread across his chest. The flavor was strong but kind. It reminded him of better days, days when someone cooked for him with love. His throat tightened as he swallowed. "You cook better than any miner here," he said softly, trying to smile. The woman gave no smile. In return, only a short nod. Her eyes were always on the child, always listening to the sounds outside. The man realized she trusted no one, not even him. And yet she had stepped into his home. Why him? Why here? The fire crackled. Shadows danced on the walls. He leaned forward, voice firm this time. "If you want to stay, I need to know the truth." The woman's shoulders stiffened, her arms tightening around the baby. "You would not understand," she whispered. "Try me," he said. For a long silence, only the wind answered. Then she spoke, voice heavy with sorrow. "My people are scattered," she said. "We were broken after the war, hunted across the stars, many hide, many die." Her hand stroked the child's head, glowing faintly in her touch. "But this child, they say he is different. They say he carries something inside him, something powerful, something they fear." The man's chest grew cold. He had heard rumors, whispers about alien children who were born during the war. Children said to be half symbol, half weapon. If that was true, then the baby in her arms was not only a child, it was a target worth killing for. "Is it true?" he asked. "Does your baby carry something dangerous?" The woman's eyes shone with sudden fire. "He is not dangerous, he is only a child," she said, her voice breaking. "They want to make him a tool, to use him like a machine, but he is mine. He is my son." The man lowered his gaze. He thought of his own son, the one he lost when soldiers came to his village. That memory never left, never healed. Now, across the table, another child lay in danger, and he felt that old wound open again. A sudden sound broke his thoughts. Not thunder, not wind. Something sharper. The baby's humming grew louder, almost like a warning. The woman froze, eyes fixed on the door. The man grabbed his lamp and stood, his breath shallow. Outside, faint, but clear, there was movement, boots scraping against the dirt, slow and careful. A shadow passed by the window, too heavy for the storm to carry. The man's skin went cold. "They found us," the woman whispered, clutching the child to her chest. The man's pulse raced. He reached for the old rifle by the wall, the one he had sworn never to use again. But before he could lift it, a voice came through the cracks of the door, low, harsh, and in a language he did not understand. The words hissed like venom, followed by another sound, the scratching of metal against wood. The baby whimpered, glowing brighter. The woman covered him quickly, trying to hide the light. The man aimed the rifle at the door, sweat running down his face. The voice outside grew louder. Another joined it, then another, 3 at least, maybe more, circling his house. The woman looked at him with desperate eyes. "If they break through, we will not survive," she said. The man's grip tightened on the rifle. He had asked for a cook, a simple life, a small comfort. Instead, fate had delivered danger to his door. But, deep inside, he knew there was no escape from this path now. The scratching stopped, and silence fell. The storm still howled, the fire still burned, but the silence outside was worse than the noise. It was the silence of hunters waiting. The man raised, his weapon heart-pounding, and then with a sharp crack the front door shuddered as if something powerful had struck it. The first attack had begun. The door shook again, harder this time. The old wood groaned, the hinges screeched, and dust fell from the frame. The man braced his rifle, his hands shaking though he tried to steady them. The alien mother pulled her child close, wrapping him. In the glowing cloth, her eyes darting toward every shadow in the room. Then silence. The storm outside raged, but the hunters had gone quiet. The man's chest rose and fell quickly, sweat dripping down his brow. He knew this silence was not safety. It was the pause before something worse. "They will not stop," the woman whispered, her voice almost broken. "They know we are here." The baby gave a soft cry, light flickering under the cloth. The man clenched his jaw. "Be silent," he said. But his heart twisted at the thought of telling a baby not to cry. The silence ended with a sharp metallic click. Through the cracks of the window, a red beam of light swept across the room, slow and searching. The beam paused over the table, then slid across the floorboards. It crept closer and closer to the child, glowing. Faintly in his mother's arms, the man's finger tightened on the rifle trigger. He had fought machines before. He recognized the sound of scanning drones. Outside, another beam cut through the storm, and another. The house was surrounded. The woman's breathing grew shallow. "They are mercenaries," she whispered. "Paid. Hunters, not soldiers." The man's eyes narrowed. "Why chase you across a storm just for a child?" She turned away, holding the baby tighter, refusing to answer. The rifle felt heavier in his hands. He wanted to demand the truth, but there was no time. The red light fixed on the baby's glow, refusing to move. A high-pitched whine filled the room. The sound of a drone locking its target. The man cursed under his breath and fired. The shot blasted through the window, glass and wood exploding outward. The beam cut off, replaced by a sharp metallic screech. The drone fell, smoking, into the dirt outside. Instantly, voices rose in the storm, shouting in a harsh alien tongue. Heavy boots pounded the ground, circling the house faster now. The woman gasped. "You should not have fired. Now they will not wait." The man reloaded, his hands trembling but determined. "They were never going to wait," he said. The next moment, the roof above them shook violently. Metal claws scraped against the shingles, the sound of something crawling across the top. The baby whimpered, the humming sound stronger now, as if his body sensed danger before anyone else. The woman tried to calm him, whispering soft words, her voice like music in the chaos. Then came the crash. The wall to the left burst inward, wooden planks flying like arrows. A tall figure stepped through the hole, metal armor, glowing visor, weapon raised. The hunter had entered. The man fired without thinking. The shot struck the hunter's chest, but the armor absorbed most of it. The figure staggered but did not fall. The man cursed, pulling the bolt back, ready to fire again. The woman screamed, holding her baby close as the hunter raised his weapon. A sharp burst of energy shot across the room, missing the man by inches, burning a hole through the wall behind him. The firelight flickered, smoke filling the air. The man dove behind the table, dragging the woman with him. The baby's glow spread brighter, casting long shadows across the room. The hunter tilted, its head almost curious, the visor reflecting the child's light. Then, something strange happened. The baby let out a cry, not loud but piercing. The air vibrated, the light pulsed, and for a brief second the hunter froze. Its weapon flickered, its visor glitched, sparks danced across the armor. The man saw his chance. He fired again, this time hitting the visor. The hunter crashed to the floor, smoke rising from its helmet. The house shook with another impact, 2 more hunters forcing their way in from the back. The man pulled the woman toward the cellar door, hidden beneath the rug. "Down there, move!" he shouted. She hesitated, clutching the child, but then obeyed. They climbed into the darkness as the man slammed the trapdoor shut above them. In the cellar, it was cold, damp, and filled with old supplies. The baby's glow lit the stone walls faintly. The woman sank to the ground, rocking the child, whispering, something in her language. The man leaned against the wall, his rifle in hand, his breath heavy. The thuds of boots echoed above. The hunters were tearing the house apart, searching. The man knew the cellar would not stay secret for long. He looked at the woman, his voice rough. "Why risk everything for that baby? What is he?" Her eyes lifted to meet his, tears shining. "He is more than my son," she whispered. "He is the last hope of my people." The man's blood ran cold. Hope could mean many things: power, weapon, prophecy. But before he could ask, a loud metallic bang shook the trapdoor above them. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The hunters had found the entrance. The baby started crying again, glowing brighter than ever before. The cellar filled with light, washing across the man's face, and in that moment he understood. The child was not only a target, the child was something the world had never seen. The trapdoor cracked, a hand of steel breaking through the wood. The man raised his rifle, the woman clutched her baby, and the hunters came closer. The cellar walls shook with every strike from above. The hunters were close, breaking wood, tearing stone. The man held his rifle ready, his body tense, his eyes fixed on the trapdoor. But as the baby's glow spread brighter, the noise above suddenly stopped. Silence filled the cellar, heavy and unnatural. The woman's breath trembled, her arms tight around the child. The baby's glow softened again, flickering until it became no more than a faint shimmer. The man whispered, "They left." Though even he did not believe it. He had fought too many battles to trust silence. They waited for long minutes, listening. Finally, the man climbed the short ladder and pressed his ear against the broken trapdoor. The storm had weakened, the wind howled softer, but he heard nothing else, no footsteps, no metal scraping. Only emptiness. Slowly, carefully, he pushed the trapdoor open. The house above was half destroyed, broken walls, shattered windows, smoke still rising from the burned wood. The first hunter's body was gone, dragged away. The man cursed under, his breath. "They'll return." He climbed back down into the cellar, his expression dark. "They will come again," he said. "We must move before night falls tomorrow." The woman lowered her gaze, stroking her baby's head. "Where will we go?" she asked, her voice heavy with fear. The man did not answer because he did not know. That night they stayed in the cellar. The fire above had died, leaving only the baby's faint light. The man sat against the stone wall, his rifle across, his lap, his eyes half closed but never resting. Across from him, the woman hummed softly to her child, a lullaby in her own language. The melody was strange yet beautiful, carrying sorrow and hope at the same time. The man listened, his chest tight. It reminded him of nights long ago when his wife would sing to their son before sleep. He saw the image again in his mind, the small boy who had run through their fields, laughing, before the war had stolen him away. Pain stabbed his heart. But strangely, the lullaby soothed it too. For the first time in years, he felt less alone. When morning came, weak light leaked through the cracks of the ruined house above. The man gathered what supplies remained: dried food, water, old blankets. The woman, offered him some of her strange purple grains, but he shook his head. "Save it for the child," he said, his voice rough. As they prepared to leave, he finally asked, "What is your name?" The woman hesitated as if names were dangerous things, then whispered, "Lyra." He nodded. "I am Daniel." The baby stirred, opening eyes that glowed faintly like stars. Daniel looked at him, a lump forming in his throat. "What is his name?" he asked. "Cale," she said softly. "He is Cale." Daniel repeated the name in his mind. Cale, a child hunted yet still a child. The word felt heavy but also precious. The day passed with slow steps. They moved quietly across the dry land, keeping to the rocks, hiding from the skies. Lyra walked with Cale in her arms. Daniel close behind, his rifle ready. Every shadow looked like danger. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps, but they kept moving. By evening, they found an old cave hidden in the cliffs. Inside, the air was damp and cool, the walls carved by ancient rivers. Daniel checked every corner before allowing Lyra to sit. She placed Kyle gently on a blanket, humming to calm him. The baby reached out tiny hands, touching the air, sparks of light dancing between his fingers. Daniel stared, breath caught. The eyed sparks faded quickly, but he had seen enough. "That is no ordinary child," he said quietly. Lyra's eyes hardened. "He is not a weapon," she whispered. "He is my son. Only my son." Daniel nodded, though his mind raced. If the hunters had seen what he saw, they would never stop. That night, Daniel built a small fire in the cave. They ate in silence, though Cale's soft laughter filled the empty space. The sound surprised Daniel. He had not heard a child's laugh in years. Something inside him warmed. He looked at Cale, at his small hands, at the trust in his glowing eyes. He remembered his own son again, but this time without pain. This time it felt like hope. Lyra watched him quietly, as if she too saw the change. "You miss someone," she said softly. Daniel swallowed hard. "My family. Long gone." For a moment neither spoke. Then Lyra whispered, "Perhaps Cale was meant to bring us together." Daniel had no answer, but his heart agreed. Later that night, while Lyra slept with Cale in her arms, Daniel kept watch at the cave's mouth. The stars stretched wide above, silent and cold. But something moved in the distance, faint red lights blinking against the dark. Daniel gripped his rifle tighter. The hunters had not given up. They were searching, sweeping the land inch by inch. It was only a matter of time before they reached the cliffs. Daniel turned back to the cave, his eyes falling on Lyra and Cale, the woman who trusted him enough to share her secret, the child who had begun to heal his broken heart. A bond was forming, fragile but real, and with that bond came a dangerous truth: he would fight for them no matter the cost. The red lights in the distance blinked closer. Daniel whispered to himself, "They won't take you, not while I breathe." But as he spoke, one of the lights suddenly turned and aimed straight at the cave. A scanning beam swept across the rocks, moving toward the entrance. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. The hunters had found them again. The beam of red light crawled across the cliff face like a searching finger. Daniel pressed his back against the cave wall, holding his breath. Inside, Lyra clutched Cale tightly, his faint glow hidden under her cloak. The baby whimpered, but she rocked him gently, whispering soft words to calm him. The scanning beam paused at the cave's edge. Daniel lifted his rifle, ready to fire if the hunters stepped inside, but the light moved on, sweeping across the rocks, searching elsewhere. Daniel exhaled slowly, his shoulders tense. "They are close," he whispered. "Too close." At dawn, they left the cave, moving across the narrow paths between cliffs. Daniel guided them carefully, keeping his eyes on the horizon. The land stretched empty, only stone and dust, yet he felt eyes on him every step. Hunters never stopped. They tracked like wolves, patient and merciless. By midday, they reached a small outpost on the trade road. It was nothing more than a cluster of old buildings, a bar, a repair shed, and a fuel station. Daniel hesitated before entering, "We need supplies," he said. "Food, water, fuel for the journey." Lyra's eyes filled with worry. "If they see us—" "We'll stay quiet," Daniel answered. "No one will know." But Daniel was wrong. The moment they stepped inside the bar, a pair of sharp eyes followed them. A man at the counter, dressed in miner's clothes, sipped his drink too slowly, watching. He saw Lyra's cloak, the way she shielded something in her arms. Suspicion sparked in his mind, and greed followed quickly. Daniel bought water and rations, his voice steady though his nerves burned. The bartender nodded but cast glances at Lyra, curiosity sharp in his stare. Daniel kept his hand near his weapon, every sense alert. Lyra never looked up, keeping Cale hidden. But a baby cannot hide forever. Cale stirred, a faint hum escaping from beneath the cloth. The miner's eyes widened. Daniel noticed too late. The man at the counter rose and slipped out the door, moving quickly down the road. Daniel cursed under his breath, grabbing Lyra's arm. "We must leave now." They hurried out of the bar, walking fast, almost running. The air grew heavier with each step. Daniel knew what the miner was doing, sending a message, selling them out. Hunters paid well for whispers, and in this land, loyalty was weaker than hunger. They reached the edge of the outpost, but the sound of engines cut through the wind. Dark shapes appeared on the horizon, speeding across the dust. Hunter vehicles, sharp and armored, heading straight toward them. "They know," Daniel muttered, rage burning in his chest. "That miner betrayed us." Lyra's face went pale. Cale whimpered in her arms. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the rocky hills. "Run," he said. "Don't stop." The engines roared louder, closer. Bullets cracked against the stone around them, sparks flying. Daniel fired back, his rifle echoing across the cliffs. One hunter fell, but more spread out, surrounding them. The chase twisted through canyons and narrow paths. Dust rose in choking clouds, Cale's cries echoing against the rocks. Lyra stumbled, but Daniel pulled her forward, never letting go. The hunters closed in from both sides, their voices shouting in that harsh alien tongue. The sound of machines grew louder, pressing like thunder. At last they reached a narrow gorge, steep cliffs on both sides. Daniel pushed Lyra ahead. "Go through. I'll cover you." She shook her head, fear in her eyes. "You'll die." "Move," he growled, firing at the hunters climbing the rocks. Lyra obeyed, clutching Cale, racing through the gorge. Daniel stayed behind, firing again and again, forcing the hunters to duck. But their numbers were too many. A bullet grazed his shoulder, blood soaking his sleeve. He bit down against the pain. Firing once more, the gorge thundered with shouts and gunfire. Finally he turned and ran, following Lyra's trail through the dust. They reached the other side, lungs burning. Ahead, the land stretched empty again, but at least the hunters were slowed, for now Lyra collapsed against a rock, Kyle crying softly in her arms. Daniel dropped beside her, his body trembling. "They won't stop," he said, his voice rough. "That miner gave us away, and now they'll chase us until one of us is dead." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "We cannot keep running forever," she whispered. "Soon they will take him from me." Daniel looked at Kyle, the small child glowing faintly in his mother's arms. The thought of the hunters ripping him away made Daniel's chest burn with fury. He clenched his fists, blood dripping from his wound. "No," he said firmly. "They won't take him, not while I live." But as his words faded, a shadow fell across the rocks. Daniel looked up and froze. Above them, a large hunter ship hovered, its engines roaring, dust and stones flying. A hatch opened and armed figures descended on ropes, landing all around them. The ground shook beneath the weight of metal boots. There was no time to run, no place to hide. Daniel raised his rifle, his face grim. Lyra shielded Cale, tears streaming down her cheeks. The hunters closed in from every side, weapons glowing. This time, there would be no escape. The hunters closed in, their armored boots crushing stone underfoot. Dust swirled in the air as the ship above hummed like a dark sky beast. Daniel's rifle shook in his hands, but he kept it raised, eyes locked on the nearest figure. Lyra crouched low, Kale pressed against her chest, the baby's glow flickering like a small candle in a storm. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "There are too many." He knew she was right. 5 hunters stood before him, more climbing down from the ship, weapons charged and ready. The circle around them tightened. He could not fight them all. Not here. Not like this. One hunter stepped forward, visor gleaming red. It raised a metallic hand pointing at Lyra and the child. Its voice hissed through a speaker, rough and sharp. "Give us the infant, and you may live." Daniel's jaw clenched, his finger twitching on the trigger. Lyra shook her head fiercely, clutching Kale tighter, her voice cracked with anger. "He is not yours." The hunter ignored her, taking another step forward. "You cannot protect him, human. Your weapon is useless, your fight is lost, surrender." Daniel's heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to choose, fight and die here or surrender and live without the child. He remembered his own son, remembered the day soldiers had torn him away, the cries, the fire, the silence that followed. The scar had never healed, and now Kale's small glow shone on his face, pulling that memory back like a blade to the chest. Daniel lowered the rifle slightly, sweat dripping down his temple. The hunters murmured, shifting their weapons, ready to strike if he moved. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. "No," she whispered. "Do not give them my son." Daniel turned to her, his face torn. "I swore I would protect him," he said. "But if I fight now, you both die." Her eyes filled with tears, anger mixing with despair. "Better to die as his family than live as his betrayer," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. The words struck Daniel's chest harder than any bullet. He looked down at Kyle, who stared back with glowing eyes too innocent for such a cruel world. A silence fell, heavy and suffocating. The hunters waited, weapons raised, their red visors reflecting the baby's light. Daniel's finger trembled on the trigger, his breath shallow. He had faced death before, but never a choice like this. Then faintly, something glimmered in the rocks behind them. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Half buried in the dust, hidden by years of silence, was a metal door carved into the stone, an old war relic, forgotten and left to rust. He remembered stories, secret human bunkers built during the war, filled with weapons never used. A spark of hope cut through the fear. Daniel raised the rifle again, fire burning in his eyes. "No," he growled. "You will not take him." Before the hunters could react, he fired at the cliff wall, the bullet striking near the hidden door. The impact triggered an old sensor, lights flickering weakly in the rock. With a deep groan, the ancient door cracked open, revealing a dark tunnel inside. "Go!" Daniel shouted to Lyra, pushing her toward the opening. She hesitated, eyes wide with shock. "What is this?" "Survival," Daniel barked, firing another shot at the hunters, forcing them back a step. "Take Kale and run." Lyra clutched her child and darted toward the tunnel, disappearing into the shadows. Daniel stayed outside, firing again and again, buying them time. The hunters advanced, enraged, bullets and energy blasts tearing into the stone around him. One shot grazed his leg, pain ripping through his body, but he did not fall. He shouted into the storm, rage and grief spilling from his chest. "You took my family once, you will not take this one." The baby's glow flickered in the tunnel, guiding Lyra deeper. The hunters roared, rushing forward, their weapons raised. Daniel turned, blood dripping down his arm, and stumbled into the tunnel after them. The door behind groaned, old gears grinding, metal scraping against stone. As he pulled the lever inside, the heavy door began to close. The hunters charged, but the gap shrank quickly, sparks flying as one of them slammed against the steel. With a final crash, the door sealed shut, cutting off the hunters' shouts. Inside, darkness pressed against them, broken only by Kale's soft glow. Lyra panted, holding the child close, her eyes wide with fear and relief. Daniel leaned against the wall, his body aching, his blood soaking his clothes. He laughed bitterly, under his breath. "Looks like fate gave us one more chance." Lyra looked at him, her voice soft but strong. "You chose us," she whispered. You could have saved yourself, but you chose us. Daniel met her eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of choice lift from his shoulders. I will not lose another child, he said. Firmly, the tunnel stretched into darkness, the air thick with dust and secrets. As they moved deeper, faint lights flickered on, revealing rusted machines, broken crates, and the remains of human war tech. Weapons slept in the shadows, waiting to be awakened. Daniel's eyes hardened. If they want to fight, he muttered, then we'll give them one. But as they walked deeper into the forgotten bunker, Kale's glow grew brighter. The child reached out his hand, and one of the old machines sparked to life, humming softly. Daniel and Lyra froze, staring as more lights flickered on across the walls. The baby had awakened the bunker, and above, outside the sealed door, the hunters waited. They would not stop. And soon, they would discover where their prey had gone. The ancient bunker hummed. With life, old machines blinked. Rusted panels glowed, and forgotten weapons whispered awake after decades of silence. Daniel stared in disbelief. It was as if the child's touch had reached into the heart of the bunker and pulled it back to life. Lyra held Kale close, her face pale in the glow. She whispered, "He should not know this power yet." Daniel clenched his jaw. Then maybe, fate says otherwise. The tunnel rumbled as the baby's light pulsed brighter, connecting with the machines. One by one, turrets turned, screens flickered, and the air filled with the hum of hidden strength. Outside, the hunters surrounded the cliff. Their ship hovered low, its searchlights cutting through the dust. Metal boots stamped the ground, their harsh voices echoing through the storm. They knew their prey was inside, and they would tear through rock itself to claim the child. Inside the bunker, Daniel moved quickly, pulling open weapon crates. Inside lay old rifles, grenades, and a heavy plasma launcher. Dust covered them, but the machines hummed as if waiting for his hands. Daniel loaded the rifle, his eyes hard with determination. He turned to Lyra. "Stay in the back. Keep Kale safe. If I fall, you run deeper." Lyra shook her head fiercely. "No, we fight together. He is not only my son now, he is ours." The words struck Daniel's chest like a flame. For years he had lived as an empty shell, haunted by loss. Now, in the eyes of this alien woman and her glowing child, he saw something new. Family, fragile but real, and he would burn the world before letting it be stolen. The first explosion shook the bunker. Rocks cracked. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hunters had brought charges, breaking their way through. Daniel raised his weapon, the bunker's defenses. Whirring to life beside him, turrets turned toward the sound, ready to fire. The wall burst open with fire and smoke. Hunters stormed in, armored figures with glowing visors, weapons raised. The battle began. Gunfire and plasma bolts lit the darkness. Turrets spat fire, cutting down the first wave. But more poured in. Relentless. Daniel fired, each shot fueled by rage and memory. A hunter fell, another staggered, but still they came. Lyra stood behind him, clutching Kale, whispering prayers in her language. The child's glow pulsed with each blast, the machines responding to his light, shields sparking to protect them. The air grew thick with smoke and heat. Daniel's shoulder burned where a bullet grazed, his leg trembled from blood loss, but he refused to fall. He roared, charging forward, throwing a grenade into the crowd. The blast shook the tunnel, metal screamed. Hunters fell, but more shadows filled the smoke, their ship still feeding soldiers into the fight. Daniel stumbled, falling to one knee, his vision blurring. A hunter raised its weapon, aiming at his chest. But before the shot could fire, Kale cried out. The air vibrated. A wave of light surged from his small body. The hunter froze mid-step, its armor sparking, collapsing to the floor with a heavy crash. Daniel lifted his head, breathless, staring at the child. Kale's glow spread across the walls, feeding the bunker's power. Old cannons roared to life, blasting through the rock, striking the ship above. The ground shook as fire lit the sky outside. Lyra gasped, clutching her son. He cannot hold this for long. Daniel pushed himself up, firing again, covering the machines as they destroyed wave after wave. The hunters faltered, their red visors flickering with fear. They had hunted prey, but what they faced now was more than prey. Another explosion rocked the cliff as the ship above burst into flames. Hunters screamed as fire rained down, their ranks breaking. The survivors turned and fled into the storm, their voices fading into the distance. The battle was over. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning wreckage outside. Daniel lowered his weapon, his body shaking, his breath ragged. Lyra knelt beside him, Kale still glowing faintly in her arms. "You stood for us," she whispered, tears running down her cheeks. "You chose us again and again." Daniel met her eyes, his voice rough but steady. "You are my family now." The words hung heavy in the air, not just words but a promise. Daniel reached out, touching Kale's tiny hand, the glow warming his skin. For the first time since he lost his son, his heart no longer felt empty. They spent the night in the bunker. The machines hummed softly. Alive once more, protecting them, Daniel's wounds were wrapped, his body weary, but his spirit unbroken. Lyra sat close, Kale asleep between them. The fire of battle had ended, but a new fire had been born in their hearts. When morning came, Daniel stepped outside. The storm finally cleared. The wreckage of the hunter ship lay smoking on the horizon, the land quiet for now. He knew others would come, drawn by whispers of the child. But he was no longer afraid. He had faced death and found life again. Lyra joined him, her eyes soft yet strong. "Where do we go now?" she asked. Daniel looked at the endless horizon. "Wherever we must," he said. "We will run, we will fight, but we will do it together." He turned to her, his voice steady. "They wanted a weapon, but all I see is a son and a family worth saving." Lyra's hand touched his, her eyes shining. "Then we are not alone anymore." Kale stirred in her arms, opening his glowing eyes. For a moment the world felt brighter, the silence kinder. Daniel smiled, a rare smile, one he thought he had buried long ago. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. And as the three of them stood together on the broken land, a man, an alien mother, and her child, they were no longer strangers. They were a family, bound, not by blood but by choice, and nothing in the galaxy would tear them apart.